Hi guys, have you ever wondered what would happen if Vegeta and Kaguya got together? Grab your snacks, cause this timeline is about to get insane.
The skies of an ancient, untouched world bleed open, violently tearing the fabric of reality apart. A dying star plummets from the heavens, carrying a battered warrior whose immense pride refuses to be extinguished. Stripped of his strength and lost in the void, the Prince of all Saiyans embraces the crushing dark. The earth shatters upon his arrival, marking the absolute end of peace in this primitive land. Even at the absolute brink of death, that legendary fighting spirit stubbornly clings to life. The crash leaves a permanent scar on a world completely unaware of the terrors lurking above. From the silent shadows emerges a solitary figure, drawn to the chaotic energy of the fallen stranger. She gazes upon the wreckage, sensing an alien power completely foreign to the flow of this planet. Beneath the blood and broken armor, she sees a raging fire that refuses to be tamed. Two lonely souls from different galaxies are finally drawn together by the gravity of pure fate. She extends a hand of mercy to the beast, offering salvation in a world defined by cruelty. A fragile bridge is built in the silence, woven entirely by an unspoken mutual loneliness. But the beast is not so easily tamed, awakening with the fierce instincts of a survivor. His pride demands complete dominance, immediately rejecting the vulnerability of needing someone else's help. Yet the woman before him stands utterly unfazed, holding an aura of quiet, unshakable royalty. The tension breaks just enough for the warrior to recognize a kindred spirit hidden in her eyes.
Who the hell are you? And where am I? This definitely ain't Earth.
She offers no immediate answers, only the silent grace of a being who has lived entirely in isolation.
I am Kaguya. If you want to survive this primitive world, you better keep up.
A bruised ego means nothing to the prince. He accepts the challenge with a familiar, arrogant smirk. Walking into the unknown, he steps out of his own universe and directly into her solitary reality. Here, far away from the pathetic squabbles of cowardly men, they forge a quiet sanctuary of their own. Days turn into an unspoken understanding, bonding two gods who refuse to bow to anyone else.
You're running from something, aren't you? Trust me, I know exactly what that look means.
A single, sharp question cuts deeply through her armor, exposing the absolute fear she hides from this world. Without a single promise spoken, an unbreakable alliance is formed in the heart of the forest. But peace in this universe is nothing more than a fragile illusion waiting to be violently shattered. The weak and cowardly humans of this world dare to march upon the sanctuary of a god. They seek a monster to destroy, completely unaware they have just awakened a true god of destruction. The stage is set for a massacre, and the prince's patience for garbage has completely run out. Thousands of primitive soldiers march through the dark woods, their blazing torches violently piercing the sacred tranquility of the ancient forest. Driven by blind fear and ignorant hatred, humanity mobilizes its pathetic forces to destroy what it cannot possibly understand. The glowing sea of fire surrounds the wooden shrine, trapping the isolated pair in a suffocating cage of human malice. A rugged commander steps forward, his rusty sword raised high as he signals the vast army to halt their relentless advance.
Bring out the horned witch! Surrender her right now, or we're gonna burn this entire forest down to ashes!
Inside the dimly lit room, Kaguya freezes, the traumatic echoes of humanity's endless betrayals haunting her pristine white eyes. She watches the flickering flames, anticipating the exact same cycle of violence and cowardice that has always poisoned this world. But she is no longer alone. Sitting quietly in the shadows, the prince observes the pathetic display with absolute disgust. The soldiers bang their crude shields, the deafening noise echoing through the night like a pack of rabid, desperate dogs. Kaguya instinctively takes a step back, her delicate hands clenching her silk robes as the oppressive weight of despair sets in. Vegeta's sharp eyes narrow in the darkness. The sheer audacity of these weaklings threatening his peace pushes him over the edge. The Saiyan slowly rises to his feet, a dark, terrifying aura of suppressed rage radiating from his battered, muscular frame. With heavy, deliberate footsteps, he walks past the trembling goddess, his mere presence immediately shifting the gravity of the room. He stops dead in front of her, turning his broad, battle-scarred back into an impenetrable shield against the encroaching inferno. Kaguya gasps softly. For the very first time in her immortal life, someone is willingly stepping into the line of fire for her.
Just stay back and relax. I'm gonna take out the trash before they stink up our home.
Vegeta steps out of the shrine's shadow, his face carved from pure ice as he coldly evaluates the pathetic army before him. The atmosphere instantly chokes. The commander feels a sudden, paralyzing chill run down his spine as he meets the alien's gaze. Sweat drips down the human's face. He tries to stand tall, but his primitive instincts scream that he is facing a predator. A wicked, arrogant smirk stretches across Vegeta's face. The absolute lack of fear in his eyes breaks the army's fragile morale. He takes one single step forward, and the solid stone ground splinters beneath his boot under the sheer pressure of his killing intent. Desperate to regain control, the terrified commander points his trembling blade directly at the prince's chest.
Are you deaf, you freak? Hand over the demon woman right now, or we'll slaughter you like a pig!
Vegeta tilts his head slightly, his eyes reflecting nothing but bottomless contempt for the worthless insect daring to speak to him. The calm before the absolute slaughter. The air itself begins to warp and crackle as the prince prepares to pass his royal judgment. The prince raises a single hand. A concentrated sphere of golden light blooms in the darkness, carrying the destructive weight of a dying star.
Don't just stand there, you idiots! Kill him right now! Tear him apart!
Driven by absolute blind panic, the human army surges forward like a swarm of desperate insects rushing straight into an open flame. But numbers mean absolutely nothing to a god of destruction. He closes his eyes, savoring their pathetic final moments. The raw energy condenses into a single blinding point, bending the very air around it under immense gravitational pressure. Kaguya watches in sheer awe. She has never seen anything so terrifyingly beautiful, a power completely unborrowed from the earth. The arrogant humans finally realize their fatal mistake, but the clock has already run completely out.
Pathetic trash! Get out of my sight!
With a single, effortless flick of his wrist, he unleashes a torrential wave of golden destruction. There is no resistance, no battle, and no time to scream. The vanguard is erased from existence instantly. The sheer intensity of the blast scorches the earth itself, melting the mud into glowing glass beneath its wake. Like a divine scythe, the energy sweeps through the woods, wiping the arrogant stain of humanity from the canvas. Even amidst the apocalyptic destruction, his power deliberately curves around the shrine, keeping his new sanctuary entirely untouched. The beam pierces the heavens, splitting the clouds wide open before finally fading into the dark abyss. A thick curtain of steam rises over the battlefield. The screaming, the marching, the hatred. It is all gone. The wind sweeps the ashes away, revealing a chilling, absolute silence that now blankets the earth. There are no corpses, no weapons, no survivors. The entire army has been surgically erased from reality. He lowers his hand without a single ounce of remorse, viewing the massacre as nothing more than taking out the trash. Kaguya steps into the cold air. The mob that terrorized her for days was simply gone in a single heartbeat. All her trauma, all her fear, completely eradicated by a warrior who demands absolute respect from the universe itself. He turns back to her, standing tall as the absolute, undisputed master of this primitive domain.
Like I said, just taking out the trash. Let's go finish that tea.
The prince claims his throne in the shadows, demanding peace through the absolute language of superior violence. For the first time in her cursed life, the goddess finally feels completely, undeniably safe. A brutal, terrifying peace falls over the land. But this silence is merely the calm before a much darker storm.
Did he just vaporize an entire army without breaking a sweat? Drop a comment right now. Was Vegeta way too savage, or did they totally deserve it?
The illusion of peace is completely shattered. A new, terrifying anomaly tears through the heavens, carrying a suffocating divine presence. Kaguya freezes in absolute horror. This is not the primitive fear of pathetic humans, but the paralyzing dread of true divine judgment. The sky bleeds open. The absolute apex predator of the cosmos has finally tracked down his runaway sacrifice. Isshiki Otsutsuki descends upon the earth. He does not fall. He simply commands gravity to bring him down. The prince merely narrows his eyes. Another uninvited guest crashing into his home, radiating a sickeningly arrogant aura. He stops high above the scorched earth, looking down at the world as if it were nothing but an insignificant speck of dust. He surveys the glassed crater, entirely unimpressed by the destruction, searching only for the missing piece of his grand design. His cold eyes lock onto his prey. He registers the trembling goddess, completely blind to the apex predator standing right beside her. Kaguya steps back, completely consumed by the realization that her temporary sanctuary has already been breached by the ultimate authority.
Your pathetic little playtime on this mudball is over, Kaguya. It is time for you to fulfill your actual purpose.
As she collapses in total despair, the prince steps forward, casually placing his body between his new bride and the supposed god. Vegeta waits for the challenge. He waits for the arrogant intruder to acknowledge the warrior who just claimed this entire planet. But the god sees absolutely nothing. To Isshiki, the Saiyan is merely a speck of dirt, briefly obscuring his property. The disrespect is absolute. Being attacked is a challenge, but being completely ignored is a death sentence for his pride.
Step into the jaws of the God Tree right now. Do not make me drag you there myself.
The very air around the prince becomes completely unbreathable as a monstrous volcanic rage rapidly boils over. The earth itself begins to panic. Gravity completely breaks down under the sheer, oppressive weight of his furious killing intent. The beautiful, barren wasteland he just created is instantly shattered, violently crushed by the overwhelming density of his boiling pride. A devastating tension locks the atmosphere. The god above finally feels a strange, heavy vibration pulling at his pristine robes. Kaguya watches in sheer disbelief. The terror of her clan is entirely eclipsed by the raw, unfathomable fury standing before her. For the first time in millennia, the untouchable deity pauses, his absolute authority interrupted by an impossible roaring pressure. He finally lowers his gaze. He finally sees the man whose sheer presence is literally tearing the surrounding environment completely apart. The prince flashes a feral grin. The disrespect has been fully acknowledged, and the penalty for such arrogance is absolute destruction.
Hey, you arrogant alien trash! Are you completely blind or just incredibly stupid? You're looking right at your executioner!
The earth violently screams in agony as a completely untamed, monstrous pillar of raw power erupts, directly challenging the heavens themselves.
Bro, do NOT just ignore the Prince of all Saiyans in his own front yard? Do you believe this Otsutsuki is about to suffer a crushing defeat?
The Prince of all Saiyans embraces his rage. The air itself trembles as a golden primal power awakens from deep within. The transformation shatters the quiet night, replacing the cold shadows with an overwhelming, burning golden fury. Even the god is forced to take notice. The mortal he dismissed just moments ago now radiates a pressure that defies all logic.
Finally! Let's see what you're really made of.
He moves faster than thought. A golden streak of pure violence carves through the night, headed straight for the god. The distance means nothing. In the blink of an eye, the Saiyan closes the gap, turning the sky into a weapon. For the first time, the calm mask of the god slips. He is not ready for this level of raw physical velocity. The clash is absolute. Physical strength slams against divine artifice, threatening to shatter reality itself. The god is pushed back. The pure, unadulterated taijutsu of the Saiyan is overwhelming his defenses. He doesn't stop. He doesn't breathe. He keeps the pressure at maximum, denying the god a single second to recover. He is dancing in a storm of gold, struggling to keep pace with the savage, relentless assault of the Saiyan. Their collision tears the sky open, turning the battleground into a chaotic display of god-tier power. The god retaliates. He pulls weapons from his dimension, desperate to stop the unrelenting fury.
Don't think sticks and stones are gonna cut it!
He sends the deity crashing into the mountainside. The sheer force of the blow echoes for miles. The god stands again. His arrogance is gone, replaced by the cold, calculated rage of an apex predator.
That's it? I thought gods were supposed to be impressive.
He counters with space-time arts, vanishing and reappearing in a blur of deadly, divine precision, a blur of movement too fast for human eyes to track. It is a symphony of raw, destructive carnage. The Saiyan feels pain, but it only feeds the fire. The more he bleeds, the faster he moves. The god prepares his final verdict, gathering the full weight of his authority into one lethal, dark orb. He won't run, he won't dodge. The prince intends to meet the attack head-on with everything he has. He pulls the very essence of his soul into his palms, preparing to erase the god from his sky. The two forces collide, the authority of a god against the unyielding, crushing pride of a Saiyan. The god is losing. His divinity is crumbling before the raw, unstoppable force of the Saiyan's will. The beam scorches the earth, leaving a path of complete destruction that stretches to the very edge of the horizon. Silence returns. He stares into the smoke, checking to see if his arrogant guest has finally been erased. The god survives, but he is wounded. The Saiyan's fury has proven that even divinity can bleed.
Good! I was just getting warmed up!
The true battle has only just begun. The god against the Saiyan, the fight of the century.
The speed was absolutely unreal. Can Isshiki's space-time magic actually handle pure Saiyan muscle, or is he getting wrecked? Let me know in the comments.
The god unleashes his arsenal. Countless black rods manifest, ready to pin the Saiyan to the earth like an insect. The barrage is instant, a lethal rain of obsidian steel, each capable of draining the life from a mountain. He does not retreat. He simply disappears, leaving the projectiles to pierce nothing but the night air. He moves like a phantom, the god's visual prowess, unable to pin down a target, moving faster than his eyes can perceive. The god's greatest weapon is rendered useless. He cannot shrink what he cannot track. The first strike lands. The god is pushed back, the arrogance in his eyes turning to shock. The prey has become the hunter. The Saiyan revels in the realization that his opponent is out of options.
That little shrinking trick of yours? It won't work on me. Try keeping up with raw power.
He initiates a brutal combo, a relentless torrent of strikes that forces the god into a defensive struggle. The defense is buckling. The god realizes that physical force alone is enough to break his arrogant pride. The precision is flawless. He strikes with the cold, calculated intent of an executioner. He refuses to let up. Every move the god makes is answered with 10 times the force. He slams the god into the earth, the shockwave vibrating through the very foundation of the forest. The god is wounded, The mask of superiority has been stripped away, leaving only raw, desperate fury. He walks with the arrogance of a conqueror, knowing that the fight is already in his hands.
Don't you dare look down on me, you lowly mortal! I am a god!
He catches the weapon effortlessly. The god's last desperate effort is crushed like glass. Broken steel, broken spirit. The god's power is failing him. He closes the distance and grabs him by the horn, the symbol of his false divinity. The horn, the mark of his high-tier status, begins to fail under the pressure of the Saiyan's wrath. The horn snaps. His physical armor, like his godhood, is easily stripped away. Total humiliation. The god is pinned, his resistance utterly silenced by the prince's dominance.
You're nothing but a pathetic imposter playing at being a god! Stay down!
The fight is over. The god has been humbled, his ambition shattered by the Saiyan's relentless pride. He leaves the broken husk behind. A new era has begun, and the prince has firmly claimed his territory. A final, desperate gamble. The god reaches out, hoping to brand the Saiyan with the mark of his own undoing. The prince does not flinch. He watches the hand approach, his patience for the god's arrogance completely evaporated.
Accept your destiny. You will be my vessel, and this world will bow to me.
He catches the hand effortlessly. The god's final attempt at domination is crushed in a single iron grip. The wrist snaps. The god's reach is shattered, his divinity powerless against the raw strength of the prince. Point blank, there is no escape, no teleportation, and no tricks left. The execution is at hand.
You really thought you were a god? You're just a stain on the floor. Get erased!
The blast rips through his very existence, erasing the god's body, soul, and pride until nothing remains but ash. The darkness is gone. The sky clears, revealing the silent stars of a world finally freed from its puppet master. The transformation fades. The warrior stands in the silence, the dust of his enemy settling around his boots. She approaches him with a gaze of absolute reverence. The goddess has found her protector, and the world has found its emperor. The nightmare is over. She looks upon him not as a weapon, but as the only king she will ever follow. He accepts his new role. This land is no longer a playground for gods. It is his domain. The Prince of all Saiyans has forged a new era, turning the ancient world into his own personal throne. No gods to challenge him, no armies to annoy him. Just the absolute silence of a world that knows its master. The God Destroyer has found a new home, and the era of the Saiyan bloodline has only just begun. Together, they watch the night, the masters of a world that will never be the same again.
A quiet night. D for now.
The universe is vast, and the Prince of all Saiyans has only just begun to claim his throne. This is the era of the Saiyan bloodline.
That was an absolute wild ride, right? If you loved this cinematic crossover, smash that like button and subscribe. Peace out.